Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk Jamaica. I am your host, Quanna Harris. You know, once you've tuned into Real Talk Jamaica, you can expect nothing but realness. So stay tuned for my story.
Only I can tell my story.
Can tell my story.
Can tell my story.
Thank you for staying with us. Tonight we have a very special guest whose story is one of resilience, redemption, and faith. Please give a warm welcome to Raefi-ann Earl. Welcome, Raefi-ann.
Thank you for having me. How are you? I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I am doing great. Yes, it's nice to meet you, Raefi-ann. So let's start from the beginning. You're going to give us your story. Who is Raefi-ann?
Raefi-ann is a gem, a blessing to life, a woman of God who was born with purpose, raised with purpose, and has survived a life of hardship, but has still been able to re-identify herself, to know who she is and what the purpose is that she's called for. You're looking at survival. You're looking at strength and the beauty of God and what He can do with brokenness.
You've been through so many challenges, Raefi-ann. Give us a little bit about your childhood and the environment that you were brought up in.
So I was raised in a small home. I was raised in a one-bedroom household with parents, mother, father, and siblings, blood siblings and half-siblings. It was challenging but fun at the same time. As a child, you have a picnic to play with. But the challenging part was that we are from a poor background, so we struggled to eat frequently and to have the luxury of life that society would deem good enough for a family. So among those challenges would also include my innocence being taken from me from one of the household members as an adult, who was supposed to be protecting me. It's robbed me of some of my childhood because I was not allowed to interact all the time as I would want to with the other children. When children were outside playing or just doing homework, as simple as that, I had to be replacing myself with being an adult to satisfy the need of that adult at the time. So it was a combination of being a child and being an adult at the same time. It was not something, I wasn't raised in a household that would allow free speech. It was one of those Jamaicans way. You can't talk too much because if you attempt to talk, you get a tap on your lip or you get punishment. So I wasn't raised on that to be expressive.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to defend myself. Because as children can defend themselves. And that's where you actually start learning how to express your emotions, what challenges you're facing, even in school.
Right.
And I was not raised on that. I was raised to be rejected, to be pushed in a corner, to not talk back. Basically raised by silence.
Okay. So with this alleged incident that happened, where were your mother in all of this?
My mother was right there. So because it's a one-bedroom home, we all shared the same bed. The space was very small. Reflecting on it now, I don't know how we managed to move about freely. The space was quite small. My mother was there, her boyfriend at the time, And he had 2 outside children, those who have siblings. And my mother had another child, a boy. So it was all of us bundled like sardine on the one bed. And she was there. I can recall many nights when my innocence was being taken from me. She was still laying there on the bed. And now as an adult, when I reflect on it, I question how could she have not suspected any movement or any sound or just a motherly instinct that, a mother would get, when your child is in danger or your child is in need. But at the time, I assume that she never noticed. She never picked up on anything. And it happened.
You assume that as a child that she did not notice what was happening?
Yes.
Or as you grow older now and looking back, do you think that she knew what was happening but she just could not say anything?
Logically thinking, it would have been impossible for her to not know.
Right.
And with conversations with her when I became an adult, I would understand that it is possible that she would have known, but considering the talk from society, the backlash that she possibly would have faced as a mother, not having the knowledge of how to deal with a situation like that, those were possible factors that could have prevented her to avoid the issue, even if she had known.
At what age all of this was happening?
So my memory took me as far back as 4 years old. I remember I was still attending basic school, as we call it in Jamaica. That would be preschool somewhere.
Yeah.
4 years old. I was still a baby, but I have a vivid memory of still attending school, wearing my red uniform, getting dressed, just being a normal baby, I'd say. And it continued until I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
I know as an adult, and I reflect on it, because I still do, I question, could it have started earlier? Because I don't remember, after learning that, when you first have intimacy or intercourse,
right,
there would be some physical evidence,
right,
whether bleeding or
right.
I don't remember seeing that. I'm not sure if it was hidden, because it's not like I'm going to check myself to see, because I don't know what I'm looking for.
Exactly.
So I do question if it had started
earlier,
from I was maybe 1 year old or before that, but my memory takes me back to 4 years old. And I remember events that I would have experienced coming home from school on a Friday wearing my PE clothes. When I graduated, and at that time I was 4, getting to 5 years old, and it did continue until I was about 8 years old.
So as a 4-year-old coming home from school, were you afraid to go home, or it was just, it come as the norm for you now?
It actually became the norm. I remember being timid about it.
Right.
Being afraid, but I wasn't afraid of what was going to be done to me. I was more afraid of what would happen if somebody finds out.
Okay.
Again, I was not being raised to be expressive, to say if I was being hurt or if I have a concern about something, or to question, is this thing the right thing or is it the wrong thing? But yes, I was afraid of what my mother especially would say. I was not given the knowledge of these things at that time. I actually learned those things on my own.
Right, because I'm saying as a child, you are now knowing that this is wrong, because right, if you're afraid for your mother to find out, that means you know now, so this, what is happening to me is wrong. So I'm just looking at this 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and to just say that this baby is going through this kind of situation.
Did anyone else in your household had an idea of this happening?
Not that I'm aware of. Within the household, the half siblings were older than I was.
Right.
But there wasn't any. We were together, but we were separate. You know, in Jamaica, we don't have stepchildren are not the best, are the favorites. Step parents are even worse. So even though we were living together, we did not communicate togetherness. You understand? So if they had suspected something, I did not know. Even though I still don't know, because we have not had that conversation to say, you know, one night me think this did happen, or I noticed this behavior. Was it that time or nothing? That was never discussed.
Were you separated from the children in your household by this person?
Yes, I was. But only when that was being done to me.
Okay.
So, for example, all the children, and you know, I get up.
Yes.
And it was a tenement yard. So all the children would come together after school, especially on weekends. If I was with those children, being a child, I would be pulled away.
Okay.
Yes, I would be separated from them to have whatever done to me. And then I would just go back to pretend that nothing happened.
Really?
Yes. Sometimes I didn't. And it was from that time I started isolating myself.
Right.
I would just sit in that corner and just looking out in space. I would assume that nobody noticed because it was never mentioned to me. Nobody questioned me or asked me, why are you alone? Why are you so quiet? Why do you look sad? So I was taken from my experience of being a child, separated even from my half-siblings.
Can you share more about, can you go in detail about your experience?
The experience of
the incident that happened?
It was, well, I guess as a child, I wouldn't know to fight back. It was usually quick, but frequent. I remember just being called and being told to remove my clothes or just have my clothes removed for me and told to lay on the bed. And then he would just do whatever and I would just lay there, play dead. My mind would be so unstable. I don't know if I should talk, if I should cry. I didn't know what to do. I just laid there. And I think I was being more of an obedient child because that's one thing that was always reinforced in that home. Be obedient. So whatever an adult tells you to do, you have to do it. And again, being afraid of what my mother would say if I'm not being obedient, not doing what I'm told. Sometimes I would be laying on my stomach. I remember specifically, my mother used to do art, clothing. She used to design stuff and make them. And I remember one day specifically, I was laying on the bed going through her book that she did, her drawings. And he came in the room and he just removed my clothes and started doing his thing. And I just laid there until he was finished, and he just finished and he got up and left me there to put on my clothes. A lot of the times it was like that. If we were sleeping or should be sleeping at nighttime, I don't know how he did it, but he would have me closer to him as opposed to the other kids. And as opposed to my mother,
right,
who should really be next to him.
Right.
And right there between everybody, she would be touching me. And just whether my hands or genitals,
Right.
he would do it. And I wonder if anybody was looking or hearing, because I'm afraid of being caught, not knowing that I'm actually the victim.
Exactly.
And nothing happened. It just took place again and again and again.
And nobody.
I am a mother. I have a child that I adopted. And even though it's adoption, because, some people don't understand love when it comes to whether adopting or giving birth. And it's the same love in my view. And I pay so much attention to her. I don't think I would be in that position with my child and not notice that something like that is being done to her. And then on top of it, not saying anything. I'd rather get in trouble for saying something than to be silent.
I agree. I totally agree. How did this incident that happened to you change you as a teenager, an adult? Tell us the story about your transformation, because you said it stopped at age 8
With that person.
Okay.
So it created a monster in me, a monster that I did not understand, and I wasn't even able to identify the monster at that time. So my mother was not the one who found out. It was a neighbor in the yard noticed the behavior that she should have noticed.
Okay.
And she took me and questioned me. She didn't explain fully to me. I guess she wouldn't think I would understand as a child what she was really looking for. But she asked the question plain and straight, is anybody touching you? And being so obedient to an adult,
Right.
I opened and I said yes. And she asked who it was, and I told her. And that's when my mother found out. And to everybody, she acted like, oh my God, this happened to me quickly, and we can't believe I'm actually man. And she put on her show, and I thought that she believed the story. And so she, the law got involved, of course, and it went to court, and all of those things happened. But unfortunately, I don't know what happened. And we lost the case, and he won, which meant that he was then a free person going about his life. We had to relocate. I'm not sure if it was the stigma. By then, I started facing stigma because I was still in school. And, get a community. The school is close to where you live. So
Yes.
other children would attend the same school, and people were talking about me. Other children, some of them mocked me. Some of them wanted to ask me questions about it. I didn't know what to do about that. I didn't even know how to say this happened to me, because I wasn't trained to.
They weren't prepared for.
And I was not prepared for that.
Right.
I didn't get proper counseling to say, okay, when you return to school, this may happen.
Right.
Look out for that. None of that. It's like you take a fish out of the water, you just fling him back in there, and then him learn how to swim again and survive. And that's when I started feeling real hurt. Discrimination, right? Rejection, isolation, all of those things started to bloom in my life. And we relocated from that community. I thought I would be safer to the new home.
Right.
Unfortunately, history only repeated itself. So another member of my family saw it fit to take the opportunity to exercise the same activity with me. And I remember when it happened twice. And the first time it happened, he said to me, he wanted to know. So he started by asking me, what happened?
Okay.
Not knowing that this man wanted me to give a demonstration, a physical description of what the previous man had done to me. And he wanted to play it out. So we had a role play now went up on stage and we were performed. And he told me to take off my clothes. And he put me to lie down on my back. And he took my innocence. At that point, I felt like it was okay, because if that person did it, and for so long, nothing came out of it, you come now, why do I even need to fight back? Am I supposed to fight back? Is that the right thing to do, or is it wrong? What is my mother going to say this time? Are we going to be kicked out of this house because we don't have anywhere else to go and live? All of those things were in my head. And again, I'm still not being taught how to express if any of these things are happening to me.
So you just accept it.
I just accepted it. And after he did it, he just said, okay, that's it. And I just went back to the other children, because there were still children in the yard, and just played it off like nothing happened.
And you're at what age the second time?
At that time, I was about 9, 10. Still a baby. Not even reached puberty. I didn't even know about period. I don't know when to expect menstruation. Nothing like that. I didn't have bust. Nothing. You understand? So I started to rebel. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I learned that when I got older. I would get a lot of, as a Jamaican people say, beating from my mother. When I go to school, I would stay out late because I didn't want to come home. I didn't want to be in the same space. And instead of her taking me, sitting me down and talking to me about these things, or if she didn't know, because now looking at it, from my experience and the knowledge I've gained, even if she was not taught, she was not raised that way,
right,
to nurture me in that manner, she could have sought help to help me as her child, and she did not do that either. So instead of counseling me, she would beat me. Beat me for being rebellious, beat me for staying out late, beat me for going away with friends, not performing in school, all of those things. So she was only making my life worse, if you ask me.
But is it that she did not understand, though? When did she find out about the second person?
About a year ago. Right?
A year ago. So on I
kept it because even if I wanted to tell her, but before I found the strength or the boldness to share it.
Right.
By that time, she started ill-treating me. And she started denying the first incident.
Okay.
So, when we left that second home, we went to live with my grandmother. And I don't know what happened between her and my grandmother. As a child, they're not going to share surveys unless you're listening on the side. They fell out, and she started blaming me for the way that her life was at the time.
Okay.
She was unemployed, broke. She was bright, but she didn't push herself to further her education or to have a career or anything like that. But I heard her talking that I was the reason for her demise. I was the reason why she was in the state that she was in. And of course, my grandmother was defending me. And one morning, I was outside brushing my teeth. I had a green toothbrush at that time.
Vivid memory.
Some of these things are very clear to me. Right? And because my grandmother was also poor, but she was a hustling lady. Right? So we didn't have the uptown lifestyle, inside bathroom and those things. So I was outside brushing my teeth that morning, and my grandmother was arguing with her, and she came out boldly and said, quote unquote, she lied. A lie she tell, and it never happened. And I wanted to disappear because I'm rolling back my memory to that night when the neighbor called the police and called everybody in the neighborhood and said, this is what is happening to this little girl. And my mother was so defensive on my side, backing me and say, this man hurt my baby and all of that. And I'm wondering if this is the same person that I'm hearing to my face telling me that I'm a liar and nothing happened. I made up the whole thing.
So now when you look back, don't you think that your mother actually knew that this was happening all along?
Yeah, I believe she knew. I believe she knew about it. But so with the knowledge that I have, how I view these scenarios in society, a lot of people are raised to not have knowledge about a certain thing. That is vital to growth, vital to being a parent. And that's okay. You were raised by somebody who didn't even know better at the time.
Right.
But when you get old, and to how developed society is, it's not the 50s. It's the 90s. If you don't know what to do to help your child, find somebody to help you learn what to do. Because you love your child and you want the best for your child.
Correct.
She didn't demonstrate that. She didn't do that. She didn't get me to the best counselor, or if this counselor, if after seeing this counselor, she realized that my behavior is not changing, find another counselor, find a pastor for pray for, nothing.
Or even the schools, because she could go to the schools. There are guidance counselors at schools, so she could have approached them. Let's go back to the incident, the morning with your grandmother, and what your mother said to you. So that as a child right there and then, how did you feel? You feel rejected?
A whole lot. All caps. Black and white, plain and straight. I felt rejected and I felt like my mother didn't love me and she didn't want me.
Okay.
But to our surprise, remember, we lost the case, so he was set free.
Right.
Lo and behold, we actually found out not long after that she actually secretly was seeing the man again.
Okay.
So, you say nobody smoke without fire?
Mm-hmm.
She was secretly seeing him, and we didn't know. So, I don't know what the conversation with him then was like, or how that would have influenced her to come back to me and say, you're a liar and I don't believe you made up the entire story. And it was and I was the one who found out. And I told my grandmother about it. And as someone who said, a long time God called me, no. One time,
I was sad.
In me. I was coming home from school. School let out early because there was no water. And I got off the bus. And when I got off the bus, guess who I saw? This same old man that took my innocence in the space of my mother. And I saw him coming out of, because how the community is set up, you have a community box there, and you come to the main road, and I saw him across the street. And I tell you, my heart palpitated. I got so nervous. Because I don't know if he's going to attack me.
Right.
Because they make him go to jail. And I supposedly I tell lie on him. And him family them never liked my mother already. So I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know what to say. I know I was so nervous and shaking. But I had to go home. So I said, you know what? I just hold my head straight and walk past him. And I did that. Didn't say anything to me, didn't say anything to him. But then as I was walking home, I started reading the scenario. What is he doing here? Where is he coming from? And that's when I realized that my mother was still seeing him. And to all God good, he came to the house another day. My grandmother wasn't there. He came there and sadly, and as disgusting as it was for me, I could hear them having sex. And I tell my grandmother, yes, I was a big snitch. Because at the time, my grandmother was the only one really that was on my side defending me.
She was your support.
She was my main support. And I told her the morning when I saw him, and I told her about the day that he came here to the house and she wasn't there. So I started adding that, my mother doesn't care about what is happening to me or what had happened to me. I witnessed other men trying to get to her and she rejected them. So I don't know what kind of spell this man put on she, but it was so powerful enough for her to reject maybe a better man and also to reject her own child, to deny that she was hurt.
Tell me about what happened after all of this now, that you're going through the rejection, depression. Tell me all that was happening in your life,
I started high school, and that's how I became shy, maybe introverted and didn't know it then, but I knew I was shy. I started having sexual urges. I didn't really understand them. I started liking boys, puberty, and those things that it comes with. And I went through high school. At 15, I gave my life to God. I became a Christian. And I felt safe doing that. I felt like, I can forgive these people for what they did to me and I can move on and live a normal life. Because I started getting older now. I'm watching programs, reading books, getting a better understanding of how trauma works and that it doesn't have to kill you. With the proper support system, I can get through it.
Right.
It didn't entirely work for me then. And I finished high school. I'm an adult now. And I realized that's when I started the real struggle. I had boyfriends. I had one boyfriend when I was going to. I had to hide that from her, but I ended up living with her again.
Okay.
And the boyfriend.
And the same man?
The same man. Because my grandmother was not able to, say only a mother can give a child what a mother can give a child.
Okay.
And my grandmother could not manage she could not read. So she couldn't even help me with schoolwork and all those things. She couldn't teach me what it meant to be a lady or how to become a woman.
Okay.
So I ended up back with my mother. And unfortunately, while I was living with her, there was another incident with the same man, her boyfriend at the time, that took place. This time we were still in a one bedroom, but we had separate beds. And while she was there sleeping, he came and did what he did. I didn't tell her. I still haven't told her. Well, maybe she'll know now. I never told her about it. But it happened at that time, and that was the last time that it happened.
Okay.
So all of those things from I was 4 years old started catching up to me now as an adult. And the sexual urges were coming on strongly. I didn't understand about it. I just knew that I wanted to have an encounter with a man. So even though I had a boyfriend, still going to church, had a boyfriend, fortunately for me, he was willing to have intimacy. And we did that a lot. But the thing for me was that there are certain things when it comes to God, I don't believe that I could be one of those Christians where if you do your thing tonight, you go to church tomorrow. And that's what pulled me from God and my church life. Right. Because I didn't believe that it should be interfering or doubling up. You understand? So the more I drifted from church, the deeper I got into having multiple sex partners. And it just continued. It continued. When I realized that I didn't like it, I understand that it's not good for me.
Right.
I was learning that, you know, in having multiple partners, you're degrading yourself, you're losing self-respect, you're losing the respect from these men, especially if they find out that you are having multiples. And it started to take a toll on me. And I wanted so badly to have a method to cope with these urges and with these boyfriends. And so I started drinking. And would you believe me if I tell you that the very first time that I had a drink was when I was living with my mother and her boyfriend? He gave that drink to me.
I will believe you, because all this that was happening in that household.
Exactly.
I will believe you.
He gave me my first drink. So I knew that I could drink.
Right.
From then. And I was about 14 at the time.
Okay.
He was a drinker and a smoker. So I started drinking, and I realized that when I had the alcohol, it does something to my mind and my body that heavyweight is lifted.
It's like it numbs.
It numbs
Yes.
everything that I'm feeling, even in my mind. I don't think too hard. I don't worry. I don't cry. I found that balance, and I liked it. And I said, you know, maybe this can work for me. And I started drinking more, drinking for breakfast. As soon as somebody irritate me, I say, no, I'm not deal with you today.
Just take a drink.
Just take a drink and call it a day.
Okay.
And drinking, it became my main habit, along with still
Sex.
having multiple partners.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, it started to break me. And I couldn't handle it anymore. You know, you would think that when you do something and you realize that it's hurting you, you would stop.
Right.
But instead of stopping, I took more of it. And I continued. It led me into depression. And it basically just took over.
Everything.
It took me over completely. I didn't care about anything else after that. I realized that, you know, as long as I have my drink and my go work and make my money, I live on my own, I'm fine. I can do whatever I want to do.
What were you doing at the time, work-wise?
So I started a career I'm going to say a career because it lasted 6 years. A career in the BPO industry.
Okay.
Which, if you know anything about that, the culture is very difficult, very extremely difficult. So that too encouraged the drinking, because in order for me to be productive effectively, to bring the numbers that were asked for, and to maintain that balance in the environment, I had to have something to keep me. Because remember, you know, when I leave work and go home, and me alone, these bad memories,
thoughts,
and everything.
Coming up, right?
So I was drinking on my job. I had to drink on my job. Some persons would know, because, you know, sometimes people know I look at things. There are other persons who did it, but I didn't say the reason why, the real reason why I was doing it. So I had to drink to cope. I had to drink to sit in a meeting with my boss. When they were irritating me, I had to drink. I just had to. I felt like I could not cope if I was not drinking.
Okay. So alcohol took over your entire life?
Over my entire life. It was my best friend, man. And when I say drink, I don't mean a little Heineken that is so soft. No, I mean hardcore liquor, Campari, Dragon, White Rum, broad daylight, sun hot. Yeah, man, because I need something that has that vibe.
Okay, we'll take that edge.
Yeah. Yes, I needed that. And those were the only things that would give me that.
So when you were depressed now, So drinking led you to depression when you noticed that the drinking was not helping. So you're depressed now and you're going through all of this. What trauma was happening in your head now? Were you cutting? Were you
doing the most?
Right.
So I started self-harm.
Right.
I still have the scars to prove it.
Okay.
I did that a lot on a daily. And I realized the same way I would rush myself to get out of a scenario or an environment to just go and have a drink, I rush to get to my flesh to do self-harm and I realized that when I was doing that to myself, in my head, I was hearing that 4-year-old talking to me saying, it's your fault. You shouldn't have said anything. You should have kept silent. You deserve this because it's just your fault. And I think about what would my life be like if I had kept silent. And even though I didn't voluntarily spoke about it, I was asked. I guess I really wanted to share it with somebody, but not knowing how to, I still blame myself for it. I blame myself so much, and I was hurting so much, so deep in the depression, I started telling myself that it never happened. So I push it in my subconscious. Denying that it ever happened. But then again, on the contrary, if it didn't happen, what is the source of this behavior? Right. What is the source of self-harm, multiple sex partners, alcoholism? What is the reason for doing those things? And my mind was in a constant battle. I think me did I go crazy. And the more I lived, I realized that the more the things were in my head, I was still practicing my methods. And so I didn't want to be alive anymore.
So suicide crept in, no?
And that's when she creeped in strongly. And I tried multiple times. I took pills. Somehow the Lord was holding my hand. And instead of going up, I just went a tad bit down. So I didn't really pierce the side that would have caused the bleeding that would lead to what I really wanted. It was unsuccessful. I didn't even understand why that was, but I knew my intention was to just get rid of myself. Because who is going to want this girl who is sleeping around, can't keep a committed relationship? By that time, I was also failing at my job because even though I said I drink enough to keep up, sometimes when my head take me, I'm going to say, Ewa, work done for me. I would show for work late, leave whenever if I reach a work 3 o'clock and my shift should end 12, by 7 o'clock I'm out. Because I just cannot keep up with what was required of me.
So you're on a path of self-destruction.
Self-destruction. Pretty much. And I was destroying myself.
Right.
Not realizing that I was the one controlling the destruction. But I still felt like I had no control. I still felt like I didn't know better. Somewhere up here, a small part of my mind knew that I wanted better for myself, but the majority was ruling that how possible can it be to get better?
Talk to me about how you found God again.
Because I first found him at 15 years old. I believe that, the Holy Spirit revealed to me that from the time I got saved at 15, he had a mark on me. And he gave me a power that never left, even though I wasn't using it. And when I was 34, yes, because I would have celebrated my 35th birthday a couple months after, I went to a party. I was going to lose a best friend who was sick and dying. I believe died multiple times. And I wanted to have this person in my life so badly. This person was really encouraging me, supporting me, helping me to deal with my trauma. And I feel like I'm getting emotional about it. This person was, I would say, sent by God. And I felt like finally somebody understands. Somebody is listening to me. Right. And I didn't want to lose them. And so one night when the person got sick, they encouraged me to go out and have some fun, you know? And I didn't want to go because I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to stay home and, you know, talk to the person on the phone. Right. And anyways, I ended up going to the party, and I got a message that the person flatlined again. It lasted 20 to 30 minutes. To me, they're out, them gone. And I had the liquor in my cup, and I'm saying, I can't deal with that. I have to drink to cope with that, because that's not something I want. I cannot afford to have that. And when I was in the party, and I wasn't really vibing or anything, but at that time, when I realized that I'm going to break down and all that, I just start drink, feed myself to cope. But then God had other plans for that night. And while I was in the party, after a while, the person was revived. Right. I wasn't able to speak with them, but I spoke to their relative was there. And I said, okay, thank God. But I started feeling like I wanted to leave the party. I don't know what it was. And I said, I'm ready. And we left. The person that I went with, we left. And while I was in the car traveling back to Spanish Town to go home, I started feeling this uneasiness in my belly. I was uncomfortable. And I couldn't explain. I just knew that I wanted to go home and pray. But by now, I'm not a praying person anymore.
Mm-hmm. You're coming from the party.
I just go to the party for a good time and to go back home. But on the journey, there was this unexplainable feeling. I wanted to go home, and I wanted to go home to pray. And the person that was driving kept talking to me. Him did look smarty. And all him talk to me, in my mind, like I say, Raefi-ann, just reach out and pray. And I got home. I didn't even change what I was wearing. I'm a belly skin, I'm a short, same way. Mm-hmm. The liquor on my breath still. And I sat on the floor in my living room. And I found, because I don't know if I pray again, I found a prayer that I used to use when I was serving. And I played it. Thank God for Dr. signature. It was that warfare prayer. Right. I played. Mm-hmm. And the part that when I don't know if it say, I say, in the name of Jesus. And I prayed. I don't know myself, I pray for you. I'm praying for my friend. Right. Not knowing that in that moment I was starting something for myself through seeking the deliverance for that person. Right. And that's how I got saved. And I wept, nose not a year water, and I prayed non-stop, and I cried, and I said, God, have mercy. And it released something in me. All of those things that were locked up inside of me for all those years were now being released.
And you just gave them to him.
And I just, unknowingly. And after that, the Lord spoke to me. And he sent somebody to tell me. I started praying for the person, because I pray now. And I had that same prayer, I had it on paper. And I used it to pray for the person. And the Lord sent somebody to me to tell me that the person that I'm praying for, I should not stop. I should keep praying for them. And the more I prayed for them, the closer I got to God. And the closer I got to Him, the more He revealed things to me. The more I developed spiritual gifts.
Right.
The spirit of discernment was upon me strongly. I was seeing things that I didn't know I was able to see. I was hearing, and it was so amazing. I've never experienced anything like that before. And I thought that I was just praying for somebody, but did not realize that God was actually using that person's life to get to me. And He said that's the only way He could have gotten my attention.
Because He used what you love.
Because He used what He used what I love, because He knew if Raefi-ann should lose this person, that's it. So He used that. So strategic. He was so strategic about it. That's how God
That's the God we serve.
And it's from there on, my life changed completely. And so I started seeing myself. The Lord started taking me on a journey of self-identity.
Right.
Because I didn't love myself before. I didn't pay much attention to my physical appearance. I wasn't fancy about being dolled up and all of those things. And during the depression, the way how I disliked myself, I broke the mirror on my dresser because I didn't want to be passing and seeing that girl in the reflection. I broke the mirror. I didn't use the mirror at all. And then He started to work on me, work on my identity. And He showed me who I was, who I'm called to be.
Exactly.
Who He wants me to be, even at 4 years old. He didn't want me to be that person. This is who I want you to be, Raefi-ann. And from then, He has been working on me. So I was able to identify myself in God and who I am as a person. And I learned a lot about myself, because now I didn't even know that I don't like camera.
And you're on the camera.
I don't like bright lights.
And you're on the bright lights now.
I don't like to be the center of attention. And it's surprising to me and a lot of people, because the old Raefi-ann was not afraid to stand in the center of anything, but the strategy was that I had to be high. 99% of the time, I was drinking. Of course, when you're high, you're
bold, you're bold.
Right. The worst thing that happened to me when I was drinking, I don't know that I did anything new. I remember one day I passed out and I thought I died. I was surprised when I woke up.
The drinking intensified the other stuff that you were doing. So drinking make you want to have more sex?
The drinking only helped me to do it, to continue it and not stop. It didn't heighten those activities. It was like a prop to what I was already doing.
Okay.
So it was just an additional method.
Okay.
Understand? It didn't.
What a story.
I feel like that's a story.
It's a story.
It's fascinating, and even now, what I listened to you when you were introducing me, and 30 years ago, 20 years ago, I didn't think anybody would see me. I didn't believe that I would be so significant to anybody. I didn't think anybody would prioritize my existence. Anybody would not want to lose me. I don't think I would be walking on the streets and people are identifying me outside of my sex life. People are now identifying me as woman of God.
Amen.
So you can pray You know, so when you pray for me that time, this thing, it came through for me. You know, so I get healing. And it's fascinating for me. And as I listen to the introduction, I'm so grateful to God. And I'm saying, Raefi-ann, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of myself because I really didn't think I was going to make it.
Girl, you're a part of a royal priesthood. And as a believer, your story of triumph, this testimony will allow other women to look and to know that God is there for them. And we can always come to him. It doesn't matter what it is that we have done. He's always there with an open arm, ready to receive us. So, and my mother used to tell us growing up, she said, you can leave God, but he never leaves you. So even in all that you were doing, you remember you said you're coming from the party, you had that feeling just to go and pray because the Holy Spirit was already, he's there. He's there. And he nudges us and say, listen, talk to me now. Come talk to me now.
My time now.
My time now. Come talk to me now. So just know that you are worthy, and listen, your story, your struggle, regardless. And listen, the adopted daughter, Melissa, listen, she have your back 100%.
If nobody else does,
she has your back.
Thank God for her.
She has your back. You have a book that you're writing.
Yes. I have a book.
Yes, tell me about your book.
So this book, the title of the book is I Am Not My Mother's Child. The title came from the child that my mother was raising, the rejected child, the one that was hurt mentally, physically, emotionally, the one that was taught down to. I am not that child.
Amen.
Everything that the devil meant for me, I am not it.
Exactly.
Because he messed with my mother's mind and caused her to treat me the way she treated me. But I turned out to be the complete opposite of that. So that's how the title of the book came about. I am not my mother's child. I'm not what even she would expect of me. And the book is telling the story, the full details. Because we have to have guidelines here. The book is very explicit about the events, all the events of the trauma with the sex partners, the drinking, the self-harm, rejection, with friends, the different homes that I've lived in. Everything is in the book. And it's not something of my idea. I must say that because I've never seen myself as a writer. And telling my personal business was never a part of me. And even as a child growing up, I could not write. You know, you would encourage children to have a journal or diary. I couldn't do that because anything I write, my mother find it, you know. And instead of questioning or try to understand what I write about, she would discriminate or make suggestions of what it is that my intentions are.
Okay.
So I never practiced to write anything, but God said, you're going to write a book and you're going to share your story. I was silenced by my home, relatives, these men that I was with. But God said, you're not going to be silent anymore. And your story is going to speak on your behalf. And it's not only going to express what you have overcome, it's going to express to other women that are going through the same situation, same trauma or similar. And the story is going to be a testament to help them to overcome as well. And so it's my pride and joy. It's my pride and joy. I take pleasure in writing this book. And I not only want the book to reach people who are struggling with trauma. There's a chapter in it that identifies motherhood and parenting. And it's important for readers to understand that when we say we are parents, it's not just giving birth to a child or adopting a child for whatever reasons. When you become a parent, you take on a lifetime responsibility. It doesn't stop when they turn 18.
Exactly.
It's a lifetime commitment. Same like marriage. It's a lifetime commitment, and the key things to remember is that your child is looking up to you to learn how to become a parent in the future. It's important as a parent to pay attention to your child or your children. Listen to their silence. My mother didn't listen to my silence. So I want readers to see and understand how important it is to listen to the silence of your child. Mm-hmm. See them when they are hidden. Find them when they are lost. Ask the questions, and if you ask questions and they're still silent, that means you need to ask further questions. And those are the things that I experienced. If my mother would have asked me a question and whatever answer I gave, she would accept it and move on. And that's not right, because sometimes, even though my adopted daughter, when I ask her questions, I'm not just listening for the answer. I'm listening for the answers that she's not giving. And as a parent, it's very important to develop that skill and practice that behavior with your children, right? And that's also highlighted in the book. But the book is, I hope it transforms lives and break traditions, rearrange cultures, and rebuild foundations, not just for people who are victimized, but also for survivors to know that there is life after you survive, because my life doesn't stop here. Mm-hmm. I'm still being healed as we speak, and there is more to my life, even after this. After this session. Listen, so the book is going to be available pretty soon. And if I'm allowed to share, listen, I thought the book was complete. And then I realized that there were some details that I did not add to it. Because, you know, that little part in the back of our head where we push things.
Right.
And the Lord revealed to me that the book is not complete, because you need to give the full story of what happened. I was afraid of talking about doing abortions.
Okay.
And I had to go back into therapy for that. And I pushed it so far back in my memory, I didn't even remember the details of how it happened, when it happened, and why I did it. And so I added it to the book. That's why the book is not released as yet, because I needed to put it in there. And funny enough, at the time when I added that chapter, I encountered a female who was considering to do the same thing, and she came to me for advice. I said, then
God, look at you.
One second. So I realized that the ministry and the life that God is calling me to, I'm going to encounter these scenarios. Right. I'm going to meet many of these women, and they're going to ask me, what do you think I should do? How do you think I should go about this?
Right.
And if I don't speak my truth and own my truth and understand my truth, why I did it and what it has done to me, how am I going to be able to share with another female, another woman who is struggling in that area? So the book has everything.
Everything, even what you did not tell Quanna. The
book has everything in it.
Okay. So the book now, when are we going to get this book?
So we're estimating to have it released by September of this year. It will be available for pre-order on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And I will share it, my assistant will share all the details on that. The information will be shared on all my social media platforms. And from time to time, we'll keep viewers and subscribers up to date on any changes regarding that as well.
So you mentioned that the book would have been out earlier.
Yes.
What was one of them? What's the reason for the hold up?
So I realized, well, the Holy Spirit revealed to me that, Raefi-ann, when I called you to write this book, I said, share your story. I meant for you to share every detail of the things that gave you trauma. And I realized that I did not add to the book to speak about getting pregnant and choosing to not carry that child full term. So for 3 separate instances, I got pregnant, 3 separate partners. And when I found out that I fought 3 times, I found out I was pregnant, I realized that mentally, I'm not ready to be a parent. Financially, I'm certainly not there. And on top of that, the men that I was with at the time were not interested in fathering a child with me. So I thought about those factors, and my personal belief, especially with my experience growing up as a child, I don't believe that anyone should be raising children or choosing to have children if they are not in a certain position. Mentally, it takes a lot of mental work to raise a child. We're talking about another human being. Also, ensure that you are financially stable enough where you can provide for the basic needs of that child. And I was not in that position at all. And I would not want to carry a child into the world and not being able to sufficiently support them with their needs. So I chose at the time not to carry a child full term.
Okay. So
And I was hurt in making that decision, but at the time the hurt didn't last long because I had my reasons, and I believe my reasons were logical, valid enough. So nobody could have talked me out of doing that, out of making that decision. But I realized that years later, it started affecting me. And not only because I did it and regretted the decision, but when I realized of how it affected me physically, it affected my health. I said, maybe I really shouldn't have done that. And, what was I thinking? But then when I returned to therapy and I spoke to my therapist, she said, you had your reasons, and you're the only one who could have determined those reasons for yourself. It's a personal choice, and you did what you felt was necessary at the time. And so I had to forgive myself for doing it and come to terms to understand that I had valid reasons for doing it.
you also mentioned that you have an adopted daughter.
Yes.
Why did you choose to adopt?
Initially, I didn't choose to adopt her to become her mother because, again, I was still struggling mentally. I took her before I started my journey of healing.
Okay.
But the person that I am and the heart that I have towards people, especially because her story is so similar to mine, and I was having my own experiences, I wanted to challenge myself to not allow her to have the same challenges as I was. The multiple partners, the drinking, all of those things. I wanted to help. And so I took her in out of love. I had love for her. I had respect for her as a woman. And I wanted to see how I could possibly nurture her and guide her with the knowledge that I had gained so far.
Okay.
And fortunately for me, in praying about this situation, God told me that it's okay to keep her. You're going to keep her and you're going to mother her. You're going to be the mother that she needs, and also the mother that I needed for myself. And being her mother now, I'm not just doing that on my own. It's not just the knowledge that I gain from reading a book or from other person's experience. I talk to God about how to be that mother that this child needs. And looking at the mother that I would want for myself and investing myself in giving that to her.
How old was she when you adopted her?
She was 5, 4, 3. She was 22 at the time. And she's still young for me. There was a lot of scrutiny towards the situation because people are like, but you're 35, why you take up this a big picnic by yourself?
It's a big
But
one there.
logically thinking about it, if I was having sexual encounters at 11 years old, 14 years old, 4 years old, I could have gotten pregnant and I would have become a mother.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the difference if we're growing together? And she's calling me mom, and she's always called me mom, even before I took the commitment of being her mother.
Okay.
So a lot of scrutiny comes with it, but it's not a big deal for me because I know what I'm about concerning her. I know the commitment that I've made to God and her as well. And I know what I can, as I've witnessed, and she can testify, what I do to ensure that I stay in alignment with the call. To not only be her mother, but to be a mother overall. There are a lot of people who are mothering people that are not their own. And when you look at the age difference, really, that is not the age of the person. It's the love and the support and the care that you provide. We have mothers who are 50 and still not being effective as a parent. And their child is 12, 15, 18, and they're still not effective. But so it's the effectiveness of being a parent that matters. And that's what I look at daily. And I love her. I love her dearly, like I gave birth to her. And spiritually speaking, I did give birth to her, you know, because I have to do a lot of praying. Now, for one hour sometime, I'm put advice on her, speak things into her. She didn't want to go to college, and I listen. Me for one hour, put her foot and say, "Me plant your foot to go to college." Speak in her ears and said, "You are good enough. There is no limit to you." You understand?
So you labor.
Me labor, man. Labor pain, yeah. Yes, I do that.
Raefi-ann,
Yes.
have you forgiven the persons that caused you harm?
I believe I am still in the process. So specifically, I have forgiven myself for blaming myself. Where my mother is concerned, I have forgiven her for not believing me. And I have come to a place of acceptance that she did what she did. She was who she was. She acted how she acted. And she may never change from being that person. And if she was in this room, if she was the person sitting in front of me, I would be talking to her just the same. Because I've come to that place of acceptance. And to be frank, she has not come to terms that it really happened to me. She still doesn't believe it. Up to today. But I have accepted that. And I've also accepted that she may never believe that it happened. Where her husband, because they're married now, where her husband is concerned, I haven't fully accepted that he has not confessed or accepted that he did something to hurt me. I recently went into session about it, and I realized that I'm still angry, but I'm not angry for the fact that he made me a victim. I'm angry at the fact that nothing came out of it where he's concerned. no justice was served.
Maybe in the natural, no justice was served, but
Where God is concerned, definitely.
Okay.
And that's what I have to use daily. And I have to remind myself, God said he would take care of my enemies.
yes,
For me.
vindicate you.
He will war on my behalf.
Right.
And I use that to motivate myself to and give my mind that comfort.
Right.
Knowing that it may not happen naturally. He may not go to prison.
Right.
His other daughters may not have that experience. And I really wouldn't want that either. But where God is concerned, I know God is taking care of it for me.
Maybe he's a
promised
prison
it,
in it.
and he will.
It's
Maybe
nice.
he can
It's not
sleep
prison.
when I
Exactly. You don't know.
Right.
So just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go. Just let it go, Raefi-ann. What an incredible story. I keep on saying that. That's like my...
Wait until you read the book.
Then if the story is like this on the show, the book is more detailed.
It is more detailed. And I think when you're reading, because when I'm writing it, sometimes I go over the chapters and I read it. And every time I read, I get a different insight on what is written. So readers can look out for that. You're going to be going step by step, day by day with me on that journey.
My final question. What advice would you give someone who's struggling right now or going through similar situation that you went through?
Girl, I believe you, first of all. I don't know who you've told about the story and they disregarded it or they say that you're lying about it. I believe you. And I want you to know that the truth does not lie in someone else. The truth is in you, your truth. And I was at the place that you're at now, feeling lost, hopeless, like it doesn't even make sense I start talking now. But you can talk. All you need to do is to believe even for a moment and say, I am not a liar. I am the victim. And it was not my fault why this thing happened to me. People were supposed to protect me and they did not. I am not responsible for someone else's actions. And when you start doing that, you start telling yourself that I am going to speak. I'm no longer going to be silent about what happened to me. I'm going to talk about it. And sometimes when you talk about the things that happen, it brings shame to the person who did it to you. You're not the one who is to be in shame. They are. The shame is not on you. And for every girl that is being rejected even now, I speak life over you. And I speak that the spirit of rejection will be removed from your atmosphere, removed from your life completely. And take it that every person that has hurt you in your life will be repaid by God. And as we said, you may not see it naturally, but there is a work happening over your head on your behalf. You don't have to die by trauma. Trauma does not have to speak for you. One of my quotes says, the only role your past has to play in your future is to testify of how it could not destroy you. And let me tell you, if I could have survived my trauma, if I'm still surviving my trauma, it means that you can too. All you need to do is to believe it for yourself that you can get the healing that you need. It doesn't matter if the people around you are saying, no, you don't have to or you cannot. That's a lie. I'm telling you, they told me the same thing. That Raefi-ann, it gone 20 odd years ago. Let it go. The only let go you need to do is to let go yourself into healing. Let go yourself into healing and allow the power of God to work in you. You can write a book too. You can go on a show and talk about your own story. It's your story. And the pain that you're feeling today is going to testify for you. The pain that you're feeling, the sleepless nights, the depression, the self-harm, the drinking, the multiple partners, the losing a child, not being able to carry a child full term, those experiences are going to speak for you. It's not the end. This is just the beginning. The fact that you are watching this now and hearing this is the first step to your healing, for you to believe that it's not the end. And the only person who can determine where you go next, apart from God, who is the head of your life, is you. What will you do next? There is healing for you and there is hope. The Lord is on your side. And I have to say that anything that I have to put God into it, because if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. Nobody never knew me. Nobody wanted to know me. They rejected me. They say I'm not qualified. They say I'm not qualified to enter the room. People are still saying I'm not qualified to be seated here. But I have to rebuke that, and I rebuke that for you. I renounce that over your life. It's not your portion. Rejection is not your portion. You are loved. You are valued. There is hope for you. There is purpose on your name. There are good things out there for you if you would only believe and make the first step to start that journey of healing and restoration.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm speaking to you too.
Thank you, Raefi-ann, for making it Real Talk Jamaica. Your story is such an inspiring one and motivating one. I am so happy that you decided to share it with us.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Remember, no matter what you're going through, there's always hope. Stay strong and have faith. Remember to follow us on all platforms at Real Talk Jamaica and subscribe to our YouTube page. Until next time, I am your lovely host, Quanna Harris. Continue to keep it real.
Hey there, like what you see? Want to keep watching? Click here for more videos.